Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this video, which is a follow-on to my previous video where I detailed why I swapped from Axis foils to Duotone foils. In this video we are 3 months down the road and I've had a good period of time on my new Duotone foils to assess whether I made the right decision, and also to do a review of the foils I've moved to, which are the Glide 2.0 D-Lab, which is the monoblock version of the Glide. In my foil quiver I have the Glide 900, 750 and 620. I have both lengths of fuselage, the 37cm and the 43cm, which are equivalent to a single piece fuselage that is 60cm or 66cm. I have all three stabilisers for the Glide 2.0, the H185, H165 and H145, and I'm riding on the 94cm D-Lab 2.0 mast. So let's get into it and start by having a closer look at the Glide 2.0 foils. All the foiling elements in the Duotone range come in some very nice quality covers, and what you see here was my initial purchase, which was the Glide 2.0 750 with the H165 stabiliser and the Glide 2.0 900 with the H185 stabiliser, which are the recommended stabilisers for those foils. I also purchased the D-Lab mast, which is the 94cm slim, and also the 43cm fuselage. Around 1 month after this, I also purchased the 620 Glide 2.0 and the 37cm fuselage. This is just everything unpacked out of the covers. Everything provided by Duotone is super high quality, and the finish and fitment of the various parts is a step up from my previous experience with Axis. It really is beautifully made and fits together perfectly. If we look at the stats of the two foils, the 900 and the 750, then we have a projected area of 900 and 750 centimetres squared for each foil, hence the name the 900 and the 750, which is different to Axis, which are listed by span. The foils themselves are an aspect ratio of 10.3 and 10.2, which may seem quite high, but these are modern foils and do not suffer the issues with turning that older foils of this AR suffered. The 900 is 96cm span and the 750 is 88cm span. The tails are also listed by area, with the 900 stabiliser being 185cm squared and the 750 stabiliser being 165cm squared. Both stabilisers are built to glide and pump well, rather than being what I might consider a surf stabiliser. The D-Lab Slim mast is a tapered mast, much like the more expensive Axis UHM mast, but without as large a price tag. And we can see that there are some nice touches, like the top of the mast where it fits to the board is thinner and angled at the front to reduce drag. In terms of stiffness, this is a really stiff mast and feels very good on the water. It isn't Duotone's stiffest mast, as it is the slim version for speed, but nevertheless it feels very stiff and reactive on the water. Finally, we have the 43cm fuselage, which mounts to the monoblock front foil and is secured via a single brass screw. The fuselage is of course carbon and not aluminium like Axis, and is also much lighter weight. Lastly, the whole setup comes with various shims for the tail, so you can tune your setup to taste. This is the full foil, fuselage and tail, all assembled and ready to bolt to the mast. As you can see, there is a bit on the front of the tail that merges the tail into the fuselage to reduce drag, which is a really nice touch, and there's the brass screw that secures the fuselage to the front monoblock. I just want to mention here that all the screws for the stabiliser and the fuselage are M6, but the screws for mounting the foil to the mast are M8, which is much my preference for the fuselage to mast mounting. Okay, so let's talk about the Glide 2.0 on the water. I'm going to start with pumping onto foil, but first I want to point out that the Glide 2.0 is a modern foil, and so it produces much more lift than older generation foils. For example, my previous light wind foil on Axis was an HPS 1050, which is an older generation Axis foil and has a projected area of around 1500 centimeters squared. And my light wind foil now is the Glide 2.0 900, which is of course 900 centimeters squared. Now this may seem crazy, but the Glide 2.0 900 has similar lift and capability to the HPS 1050 in light winds. However, its speed, maneuverability, ease of use and glide far surpass the HPS 1050. Foiling and foil designs have moved on, and it is amazing how small you can go now in area and still consider the foil a light wind foil. Also, I just want to point out that Axis do have modern foils as well, and those have similar lift advantages. For pumping onto foil, both the 900, and I would say especially the 900, and the 750 have really good lift characteristics, and as such they do not need huge amounts of speed to generate lift. They also have a pretty friendly stall and telegraph when they're going to stall. You can feel it. So in that regard, the Glide 2.0 does not surprise when it does occasionally stall at low speed. I would say that both the 750 and the 900 have surprisingly good low end and are very friendly to ride at the low end of their range. When the Glide 2.0 lifts, it is a progressive lift. It doesn't come in strong like some foils, and as such you don't need to suddenly transfer weight to the front foot as it comes up. As with most modern foils, the days of kicking foils up is kind of in the past. Most foils today prefer to be sped onto foil as they are generally higher aspect. At the top end, I would say the Glide, whilst not being a race foil, it does have a decent top end. Not so much on the 900, which tends to be happy at around 20 knots, but the 750 is significantly quicker and you can go faster on this foil very comfortably, providing you have flat water conditions to do it. It is a foil designed to have great glide, so it will pick up lift in chop and not be so easy to drive at speed in these conditions as a more mid-aspect foil would be. I feel at this point I should mention the 620. This is faster again, but it does require some good speed to get onto foil and is more likely to stall on its low end if you don't have the speed to get it onto foil. That said, once up it handles choppy conditions far better than the 750 if you want to ride at speed, as it generates less lift in the bumps. Just be aware that there is quite a jump from the 750 to the 620, and it does require good wind to ride the 620 and have the necessary power to get onto foil. Obviously this foil is called the Glide for a reason, and it has loads of glide available. On the 900 you can surf on the smallest of wave driven bumps, and as you go up in size of wave you can come down in size of foil. The 620 does require a fairly steep, fast moving wave. The 750 is in the middle and will happily ride reasonable wind driven swell, 4 foot or so. One thing to be aware of is the Glide is quite a fast foil, so if you have a big wave but it is slow moving, then you may want to stick with the 900, whereas if it is a larger wave but faster moving, then the 750 will be more suitable. The 620 needs steeper faces or a bit more power behind the swell, but in the right conditions it can also be a good deal of fun, but it tends to be the one I save for the 25 knot plus days. For pumping, it depends which fuselage you use. The 43cm fuselage you can pump on, but the foils feel a bit stiff and require more effort to pump. If you drop down to the 37cm fuselage, this becomes much easier and it's far easier to pump the foil. You can generate speed on a wave by pumping, and it's also possible to pump forwards into the wave in front of you if you're committed to the effort. It does go reasonably quickly when being pumped, certainly faster than the Whiz, but equally it cannot match the low end of the Whiz for pumping onto much slower moving waves with far less power behind them. If we talk about the Glide from a maneuverability perspective, then the shape of the Glide really plays a part here. The Glide has more chord in the middle of the foil and really tapers out towards the tips. This means it rolls really quite easily for a high aspect foil and feels far easier to turn than the previous generation of higher aspect foils, because you've got that lift still in the middle of the foil but much less lift out towards the tips. In fact, I think it turns just as easily as my older HPS Axis foils, but with way more glide and better ease of use. What I mean by ease of use is if you breach a tip or fly too close to the surface and breach slightly, the foil generally recovers well from this rather than just stalling out and dropping your foil suddenly. This ease of turning combined with ease of use and exceptional glide makes it a real weapon for foiling tricks, as you have lots of glide but also a friendly foil to use that turns nicely without needing much in the way of foiling skills to make such a high aspect foil work to your advantage. That said, I would consider the Glide probably a second foil to own rather than a first foil. While I believe a beginner could probably manage the Glide 2.0, it would be easier to start with something like the Aero 3, a bit less high performance so that the jibes don't feel too scary. For anyone who can already foil and maybe isn't even proficient at jibes yet, the Glide 2.0 would be absolutely fine. If we come back to the fuselages, when jibing the 900, I match the 37cm fuselage. It just gives the 900 that slightly better turning circle that turns it from good to excellent. For the 750 and 620, I much prefer the 43cm fuselage, as the turning circle on the smaller foils is much better and doesn't need improving. The downside of the smaller fuse is it's a bit more pitchy ride. If you want to use the smaller fuse for pumping, then maybe that is a fair trade-off. When it comes to jumping, then you can jump on any of the Glide 2.0 foils, but I tend to only jump on the 750 or the 620, as these have the speed to get a good launch and upwards lift from your wing, because the Glide isn't a super poppy foil, so most of your upward trajectory you get from the wing. They do work fine for jumps, but I think most would prefer a more jump orientated foil like the Carve if jumping or freestyle is your main discipline. If you ride somewhere choppy, like I do, then you do not need to be worried about using the Glide. It handles chop well, but I would recommend sticking with the 43cm fuselage, as pitch sensitivity is a lot higher on the 37cm fuselage and may make chop handling harder. To summarise, the things that the Glide excels at are swell riding, even small weak swell, glide for foiling tricks, good speed, good low end, and ease of use. If I compare to the Whiz, which is the other duotone foil I recently rode, then for me the Whiz is a little slow. It's not really a free ride foil. It does excel at riding weak windblown swell, and it's good for foiling tricks as it turns so readily, but it lacks glide, but the low end does make it good for use in light winds. Overall for me it's the speed of the Whiz that I would find the least appealing. The Glide I think is an easier, more forgiving foil to ride than the Whiz. It doesn't quite have the low end of the Whiz on weak waves, but that said I would pick the Glide for free ride, foiling tricks, tacking and advanced jibes, 360s and so on. Or if you want all of that and do the occasional basic jump. It's also plenty fast enough unless you are a speed sailor, where again something more specialised like the Coming Blitz may be more suitable. It handles choppy conditions well, has a forgiving gentle stall, and is very easy to turn or jibe with no wayward characteristics. The Glide 2.0 D-Lab is of course the monoblock version of the Glide, and as such it is more expensive but gives a smoother ride and more overall glide than the SLS Glide. If you want to pay a little less, then of course the SLS Glide has most of the characteristics of the Glide 2.0 D-Lab. If we come to pros and cons, the pros of the Glide are its ease of use, its excellent glide, its good manoeuvrability, and its versatility. You can buy a 900 and 750 and you just wouldn't need any other foil for pretty much any conditions you were foiling in. The cons are that it's a lot harder to change foils at the beach due to the monoblock design, and that's really the only con I've managed to come up with for the Glide. Pricing wise, the Glide 900 is £878 with the tail included. The 750 is £838 with the tail, and the 620 is £778 with the tail. Just for comparison, an SLS Glide 900 is £588 with the tail. So there is quite a large premium for the monoblock version of the Glide. However, if we compare those prices to the market as a whole, both the monoblock version and the normal Glide SLS are very, very competitively priced. Let's go full circle now, as this video was in one aspect a review of the Glide 2.0 D-Lab. I tried quite a lot of foils before changing to this foil, and as such it was unsurprisingly going to be a positive review, as I'd already decided what I liked and then I bought that. It was also about how I feel 3 months on, and it was of course possible that I find something I didn't like about owning Duotone versus Axis, but after 3 months I can't say I miss my old Axis foils at all, quite the opposite. The only slight disadvantage I have now from changing is I'm on monoblock foils, and it's a bit more of a faff if I want to swap my front foil at the beach, as I have to disassemble the whole thing. Whereas on a more modular foil system that I owned before, changing the front foil is just 3 or 4 screws. I'll put up with that though, as I love the smoother ride the monoblock provides. I hope this video has been useful, and I'll see you on the next video.